And Arsenal keep marching on. Their week is going from good to better. After beating Tottenham in the North London derby on Sunday 4-1, Arsenal beat one of the favourites for this competition, for this tournament, for this trophy, Bayern Munich 3-1 in the Champions League. And Arsenal are looking as good as ever. They are confident. Honestly, man, looking at this Arsenal team, I have to give credit to the team, to the players to begin with. I have to give credit to Mikel Arteta. We'll talk about him further down the video. And honestly, with this win, Arsenal will have massive confidence and they will feel like they can take on anyone at this point. And it's very hard not to sit here and say that they are the favourites for the Premier League and they are the favourites for the Champions League as well. 5 games played, 5-1, no losses, no draws, 14 goals scored, only 1 conceded, and that goal was today against Bayern Munich. Honestly, man, this Arsenal team is a joy to watch. And today's game was not a typical Arsenal game, if I'm really honest, because they were up against a very strong Bayern Munich side, according to the lineup, the starting lineup, that is. And it was weird to see Arsenal like that in the first half, especially because I know in the second half, Arsenal turned it around and they were the ones that were dominating. But in the first half, it was kind of strange. Excuse me, just looking at my mic if it's on. Yes, it is. It was kind of strange to see Arsenal not have possession, be in the team to sit back and, I was going to say concede chances, but concede possession and hit teams on the break or hit Bayern Munich on the break. It was very, very strange to see that because I'm used to seeing Arsenal have the possession. I'm used to seeing Arsenal do to teams what Bayern Munich did to them in the first half. That's why I was saying that it was very, very strange for me to see that. Very strange to see that. But, Arsenal hung in there because Bayern Munich, and we'll talk about Bayern in a minute, they had all the possession in the world. And I think 11, 12 minutes in, it was something stupid like 24% possession for Arsenal and over 70% possession for Bayern Munich. That was really impressive, which is why in the first half I tweeted that it was actually impressive to see what Bayern Munich was doing, in terms of keeping the ball, knocking it around and having all this possession and doing to Arsenal what Arsenal do to teams in the Premier League, But one thing you can always count on, and that is Arsenal and set pieces. Arsenal and set pieces is a flipping cheat code, man. And in the beginning, I was hating on it. But at this point, I'm just like, you know what? If that's your thing, that's your thing, man. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not even going to hate on it. And I'm not even going to be salty about it because that is your thing. Every now and then teams come around and they have their thing. They have that one thing that everyone is scared of, and this might involve one player or multiple players. With Arsenal, it's the set pieces, the corners, man. They are absolute killers with them corners. The first goal that they scored, and, some may call it a bit of dirty tactics. I call it smart, if I'm really honest with you. I call that smart. Arsenal position themselves at the back post and then they run into the little box the way they usually always do. And you could kind of see Jurrien Timber giving Manuel Neuer just a little nudge. And he ends up actually being the one heading the ball in. And I think the ball was meant for Saliba. He ends up being the one heading it in to make it 1-0. And it just works, man. It just works to perfection every single time. And if they don't score, you can bet that it's going to be a dangerous chance. Because in the second half, Marino could have had a brace all by himself with them set pieces. Because I think he was at the end of like 2 or 3 of them. And he should have scored at least 2. So these set pieces, man, are a cheat code. And you know what? I am not going to blame Arsenal because, again, if that's your thing, that's your thing. The only thing I would say about it, and I've said it last season as well when Arsenal started the whole set piece thing, you can't set piece yourself to a title, and you're definitely not going to set piece yourself to a Champions League final or a Champions League trophy. That's just my opinion. If it does happen, it will be the anomaly of all anomalies. It can happen, like probably out of 100 times, you'd probably say like 2 or 3 times. But it can't be the only way that you're posing a threat. Against Bayern Munich today, it worked because that was the only way that Arsenal was able to be a threat. Looking at the grand scheme of things, some might say, well, it was only set pieces. Yeah, but these set pieces were damn good, bro. They were damn good. Do you know what I mean? So credit to Arsenal for that, man. The first goal, explained it already. They concede that equaliser. Second goal, Martinelli had already come on. No, that was the 3-1, sorry. The second goal was through... Yeah, it was the second goal, sorry. Yeah. My bad, excuse this. The second goal was Martinelli. He had come on earlier. Lovely pass over the top from Eze. Eze didn't have the best of games today, but still, when it came down to showing his quality, he showed that quality. And in the first half, he had a chance as well where he brings the ball down beautifully, nutmegs Upamecano, and he tries to, I think he tried to square it to Saka. He gets it back from, I think, Marino or Rice. I can't quite remember who it was. And he tried to square it to Saka when, in reality, he could have shifted it to his left and taken a shot. But anyway, that's just a little minor detail. But honestly, Arsenal, they will look back at this game and say this was the perfect game plan. And I also have to give credit to Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta had his substitutions absolutely spot on. Calafiori gets subbed on, gets an assist within minutes. Madueke, who came on at halftime for Trossard, who left injured, played on the left in the second half. When those changes were made, switched over to the right. What happens? Calafiori, lovely cross to the back post, and Madueke is there for the tap-in. Lovely goal. Game done. So honestly, Arsenal will look back at this game and say, we had the perfect game plan. So no issues whatsoever when it comes to that. And like I said, they are topping this Champions League and the Premier League. And they're facing Chelsea next on Sunday. So it will be very interesting to see what kind of verdict we will have on Monday. Looking back at this week, are we possibly going to say Arsenal will have finished the week having beaten Tottenham, beaten Bayern Munich, and possibly beaten Chelsea, who are on a good run themselves? Only God knows, but this Arsenal team is dangerous, people. Very, very dangerous. As for Bayern Munich, they only have themselves to blame for this defeat. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think losing to Arsenal is that big of a deal. It's the first time in 10 games or something that Arsenal have beaten Bayern Munich. So in that sense, Arsenal did get their revenge. But I don't think it will be the end of the world. And I think Bayern Munich will assess this game and they will move on from that. However, it wasn't a good game from Bayern Munich. According to their standards that they have set for themselves, this wasn't a good game from them. I think they kind of came to this game unprepared a little bit, because for those who've watched the Bundesliga on the weekend, if you cast your minds back to the game against Freiburg, they ended up winning 6-2. They went down 2-0, but they ended up winning 6-2. But ask me how those two goals happened from Freiburg. You guessed it, set pieces. So they were warned already. They were warned that they look quite fragile when it comes to set pieces. And today, they looked as fragile as ever. You could tell by their faces. Every time Arsenal had a set piece, it was panic in their eyes. They were looking at each other like, we can't mess this up, boys. Can't mess this up. And virtually with the first set piece, or the second, I think, they conceded the goal. The second goal that they conceded. Actually, no, let's go to the equaliser. And it goes hand in hand with what I said about possession. Bayern Munich had loads of it. But the downside of having a lot of possession is, if you can't do nothing with it, what's the point? What's the point? It's good being a possession-based team, but if you can't do anything with it, and if you can't pose a threat, it's null and void. It is null and void. And ironically, the goal that Bayern Munich scored, the equaliser, was Route 1 football. It was Route 1 football. Exquisite diagonal pass from Kimmich to Gnabry, who lays it off first time across the penalty box for Carl, who taps it in 1-1. Route 1 football. Sometimes you don't have to overcomplicate things. Again, I'm a fan of possession-based football, but in this case, I do think Company overcomplicated it just a tiny little bit. Because even when they went down 2-1, they tried to still play tiki-taka. 3-1, they still tried to play. Speaking of that second goal, Manuel Neuer. With all that experience, with all the know-how, and the amount of years you've been in the game, you still make silly errors like that. Still leave your goal and come out erratically. That's what I call it, erratically. Martinelli, open net. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, again, according to Bayern Munich standards, this wasn't a good game. But I think they'll pick themselves back up. I think they'll still qualify automatically for the knockout phase. It's not the end of the world. But Arsenal have managed to send out a message to Europe with this win. You know, the good thing with Bayern Munich is they do still have the likes of, still have the likes of Musiala and Davies to come back. And without them, they've been doing a fantastic job. But they need to be careful. They need to be more prepared for games like this. If they want to go ahead and qualify for the knockout phase and come up against some of the teams that they will face, and if they want to go all the way to the final, they will have to iron out these little problems. So that's my take on it, man. Listen, Gooners will be happy tonight. They will celebrate, and rightfully so, because they deserve this win. But anyway, people, like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It's road to 20K. And what else do I have to say? Nothing. Yeah. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Put the notification bell and put the notifications on all and not personalized, because otherwise you will miss whenever I drop a video. But anyway, people, that was it from me. And I shall see you this weekend for more football. Until then, take care. Have a good night. Peace.